Okay, so let's start by looking at some quotations and information about her room and how that contributes to her illness. So on page 74 at the bottom, our protagonist, she doesn't have a name yet, she is saying, I don't like our room a bit. So she doesn't like it. It's John, her husband's decision that they stay in this upstairs room. They have rented for the summer a colonial mansion, a hereditary estate, and given our protagonist's strong imagination, she even imagines this house might possibly be haunted. And she immediately does not like the room where she's stuck, taking her rest cure. Her husband has selected this room, and it used to be a nursery, so we know that, and it's described at the bottom. It is a big airy room, the whole floor nearly, with windows that look all ways, and air and sunshine galore. It was nursery first, and then playroom and gymnasium, I should judge, for all the windows are barred for little children, and there are rings and things in the wall. So we have an indication of what this room looks like. It was a former nursery, a playroom, and a gymnasium. We know that there are rings and things in the walls. The windows are barred. There's also this wallpaper that is a repellent color, almost revolting, an unclean color of yellow. And it seems as if the children hated it, the former children who lived in this nursery, because there are big pieces torn off of the wallpaper, and the bed as well is nailed down to the floor. So what are the sort of symbolic implications of all these descriptions? We can again read into some of these details. So almost immediately when I think of some of these images, the barred windows remind me of like a prison environment or an insane asylum, right? So you think about where you might see barred windows, you think of a prison or somewhere where somebody might be at danger of jumping out of a window, like an asylum or mental institution. You would also find an immovable bed in a sort of a hospital setting, and the fact that it's nailed down again is to keep that person sort of from destroying the property. So we have all these sort of indications that this room is more than just a regular room. It also is a symbol or a representation of the protagonist's predicament, the circumstance that she is in, and a reflection of her current circumstance, situation, conflict with her husband. So it is an indication that she is somewhat imprisoned within this relationship, and John's treatment of her is somewhat like a parent-child's relationship, somewhat like she's a prisoner within her marriage, and within this sort of treatment, the rest cure. And the isolation is very much apparent in this prison-like environment where she is secluded from everybody else. So it's also revealed we know a couple different things about her, what her illness is and how she's being treated for it. Her husband is a doctor, and this is one of the reasons why she is sort of forced to stay in this room, because as a doctor he seemingly knows more about her illness than she does, and yet he doesn't take her very seriously when she complains to him that she doesn't like the room, or when she makes recommendations of what she thinks would make her feel better. And John has sort of described or diagnosed her as having a temporary nervous affliction. On page 73, she acknowledges that he does not believe I am sick. What can I do? If a physician of high standing and one's own husband assures friends and relatives that there is really nothing the matter with one but temporary nervous depression, a slight hysterical tendency, what is one to do? She also talks about her brother, who's also a physician of high standing, and he says the same thing. So all these sort of men around her don't really believe she's that sick. They sort of diminish or undermine her own opinion of her health, and they're just sort of both prescribing this rest cure, which is entailed by taking phosphates or phosphites. This is the bottom of 73, whichever it is, and tonics and air and exercise and journeys. And she is, I think this is the most important thing, absolutely forbidden to work until I am well again. And our protagonist, again, she says that she disagrees with their ideas, and she believes that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good. She would like to be able to write freely and interact with other people. However, the male doctors in her life, her husband, her brother, have both sort of decided that this is the best cure for her, which is to absolutely forbid her from doing any sort of creative work, her writing, and not to give way to any sort of fanciful imagination, and really just to seclude, isolate herself in this room with very little intellectual stimulation at all. We also know some other elements of her illness. The fact that she has just given birth suggests that she's not able to do her feminine or womanly or wifely duties by taking care of her child. They have to employ a sort of a midwife or nurse to come in, the character of Jenny, who takes care of the baby, and Mary. So there's other people in the house who are taking care of her child and tending to the needs of the household while she is secluded in this upstairs room. And nowadays we would probably diagnose this character with a kind of postpartum depression, but at the time that wasn't a diagnosis that existed. So she was just sort of labeled as a kind of catch-all nervous depression, hysteria, whatever they labeled it at the time. But now we would have more insight into this character's depression and what she was dealing with. She'll also have symptoms throughout the course of the story, and eventually this condition, her illness, will escalate to the point where she is sort of dissociated and split within herself, and she'll project her feelings on this wallpaper that surrounds her. She'll experience paranoia and succumb to a breakdown. So these are sort of, her condition worsens as time goes on, and she feels the constraints of the rest cure and her husband's sort of oppressive, controlling attitude towards her and her illness. We're also given some information about her husband. We know, of course, that he is a physician. We also learn on page 73 that he is practical in the extreme. He has no patience with faith, an intense horror of superstition, and he scoffs openly at any talk of things not to be felt and seen and put down in figures. So in this regard, he is, by being practical in the extreme, he's very much a rational person who, again, he can't believe anything he can't see or prove, and has no mind for anything fanciful or imaginative. And it's very much, he's seen as the opposite of his wife, who she is a creative, imaginative person. She has an outlet that she wants to sort of write her thoughts and create stories. And he is very much the opposite of that. So he's a man of science and very controlled and controlling of her life and how she is being treated for her condition. And he's very sort of, if you get a sense of how he interacts with his wife, it comes across that he is very much patronizing or condescending towards her. There's instances where he treats her almost as if she were a child or an infant, and he is like more like a father figure than a husband. For instance, on page 76, she asks him if they can go downstairs, if she can move rooms, and then his reaction is to he took me in his arms and called me a blessed little goose, and said he would go down cellar if I wished and have it whitewashed with the bargain. So he calls her things like a blessed little goose or little girl, and he talks to her. He sort of talks down to her when she sort of complains. He'll minimize and be very condescending. So on page 80 is another example. She describes, I got up softly and went to feel and see if the paper did move, and when I came back, John was awake. What is it, little girl, he said. Don't go walking about like that. You'll get cold. And then further down that page, bless her little heart, he said with a big hug. She shall be as sick as she pleases. So he's very much condescending, and the language he uses to refer to her is very patronizing, and it's sort of indicated that he treats her like a child, that she's not like a full-grown woman or a person, a human who can make rational decisions for themselves. She doesn't have a lot of control over her life. She can't even write freely. So even the one thing that seems to make her happy in life, she's not allowed to do it, given this treatment. So she very much has to suppress all her feelings and desires in life in order to obey her husband, who is the authority figure in the story, as both her husband and her doctor, right? So he's got double authority in regards to how she is being treated. And as the story goes on, her sort of mental state deteriorates, and she becomes more and more tied to the wallpaper, and more suspicious and angry at John, her husband. So she will sort of distance herself from him, and she thinks he's conspiring sort of against her, that he's aware of the paper. And eventually she will say, I want to astonish John. I want to astonish him, on page 85. And this is sort of the height of her mental breakdown. And eventually he's the one who will faint upon coming into the room and finding her crawling, creeping all along the floor like an animal would. And he faints, and then she crawls over top of him. So we get this very creepy ending to this story where John, who is this authoritarian figure, who is completely in control of himself and his wife and his mind, he's the one who faints and falls over, completely shocked and disturbed and astonished by what his wife has become, what's been going on under his nose this whole time, that he's been dismissive of her, and this is the result. So in some sense she does sort of overcome or challenge his oppressive his sort of oppressive position within her life in this final scene, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the wallpaper, which is the title of the story, the yellow wallpaper, is probably the strongest symbol in the story and the most important element that we can look at and how it influences and reflects as a symbol the protagonist's breakdown and her illness and her experience of being trapped in this room, imprisoned. So we'll look at some descriptions of the wallpaper more closely. On page 75 we can start, and she describes the color as repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow.